Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. In this session, we will be discussing from the 49th and the 50th verses of the 8th chapter of the first canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam. The 49th verse, Baladvija Suran Mitra Pitru Bhratru Guru Druhaha Namesyan Nirayan Moksho Hyapi Varsha Ayuta Ayutaihi. The meaning of this verse is, I have killed many boys, brahmanas, well-wishers, friends, parents, preceptors and brothers. Though I live millions of years, I will not be relieved from the hell that awaits me for all these sins. So Yudhisthira Maharaj is affected by the massacre that happened in the battle of Kurukshetra. It was a world war. The whole world was divided into two parties, those on the side of the Pandavas and those on the side of Kauravas. So the Mahabharata says 640 million people were dead at the end of 18 days of the battle of Kurukshetra. So when Yudhisthira Maharaj went to the scene of the battlefield, he saw the number of dead people and he was overwhelmed with a feeling that I have been responsible for this entire killing. Now, how is it that he is responsible? Because the whole battle was fought to enthrone Yudhisthira Maharaj as the emperor of the world. Of course, it was the rightful claim of the Pandavas to rule the world after the death of Pandu, who was the ruling emperor. But Dhritarashtra, being the caretaker king, while the Pandavas were very small, their father Pandu, King Pandu, Emperor Pandu, he died untimely, early. So then Dhritarashtra was made the caretaker king because there was nobody else to take charge of ruling till Yudhisthira grew up and became sufficiently trained and an adult to actually take charge of ruling the kingdom, ruling the entire world. So Dhritarashtra, as the caretaker king, developed the desire that his sons, the Kauravas, headed by Duryodhana, should rule and not the Pandavas. So Duryodhana, being evil-minded, it is described in the Bhagavad Gita, Dharta Rashtrasya Durbuddhe Yuddhe Priyachikirshavaha. Durbuddhi, evil-minded Duryodhana, he planned and plotted to kill the Pandavas and eliminate them before they could even become adults and could actually stake the claim for ruling the entire world. But Duryodhana was unsuccessful because the Pandavas, being pure devotees, were always protected by Krishna. It was Krishna's plan that the Pandavas should actually be ruling the entire world, because they are the proper representatives of Krishna, the Supreme Lord, being pure devotees of Krishna. Only a pure devotee can properly rule this world and actually guide the people to become Krishna conscious, to get out of this material entanglement. That's the whole plan of the Supreme Lord in this material world. Sometimes people wonder, what is the purpose of this creation? The purpose of this creation is to give a chance to the conditioned souls. All of us are called conditioned souls. We are conditioned by this material nature. We develop desires to enjoy, thinking that we are this body, we belong to this world. And our life continues, birth after birth after birth, because we have so many varieties of desires for enjoying. But actually, Krishna's purpose is different. Krishna wants us to realize we don't belong here, because we are spirit soul, we are not the body. And as spiritual beings, we can never be really satisfied and happy by material pleasures, by material enjoyment, by material lordship. We can never be satisfied or happy. So, Krishna wants us to realize this, and for this purpose, Krishna has created this world in such a way that in the human form of life, we have developed intelligence, and if we are guided on the spiritual path of emancipation, of liberation from material bondage, then very easily we are able to understand and act appropriately under proper guidance and become completely free from all entanglements and go back to our original position in the spiritual world to enjoy eternal life of bliss and knowledge. This is the whole plan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the purpose of creation, to liberate all the living beings, especially the human beings. And a proper Kshatriya ruling the human beings, ruling this world, and particularly guiding the human beings on this path of liberation, it is possible that everyone can be liberated if they are guided by a king like Yudhisthira, a Krishna conscious king. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, whenever there is a war, there is certainly a massacre of many innocent living beings, such as boys, brahmanas and women, whose killing is considered to be the greatest of sins. Innocent people should not be killed. They are all innocent creatures, and in all circumstances killing of them is forbidden in the scriptures. Maharaj Yudhisthira was aware of these mass killings. Similarly, there were friends, parents and preceptors also on both sides, and all of them were killed. It was simply horrible for him to think of such killing, and therefore he was thinking of residing in hell for millions and billions of years. Yudhisthira Maharaj accepts responsibility for this mass killing, because only for the sake of enthroning Yudhisthira, the whole battle was fought, and so many people were killed. The 50th verse, Naino Ragnya Prajabhartur Dharma Yuddhe Vadho Dvisham Iti me natu bodhaya kalpate shasanam vachaha. The meaning is, there is no sin for a king who kills for the right cause, who is engaged in maintaining his citizens. But this injunction is not applicable to me. A king has to engage in violence when there is a necessity of protecting innocent creatures, of protecting the weaker sections of society, of protecting women, of protecting saintly persons, of protecting brahmanas. Then he has to actually kill the miscreants. That's the duty of the king. But Yudhisthira Maharaj is thinking that even though a king has got a duty to kill the miscreants, but this killing in this battle is not applicable, is not proper for King Yudhisthira. That's what he's thinking. The purport Srila Prabhupada says, Maharaj Yudhisthira thought that although he was not actually involved in administration of the kingdom, just being carried on well by Duryodhana without any harm to the citizens, he caused the killing of so many living beings only for his personal gain of the kingdom from the hands of Duryodhana. The killing was committed not in the course of administration, but for the sake of self-aggrandizement, and as such he thought himself responsible for all the sins. This is Yudhisthira Maharaj's thinking. A pure devotee is very thoughtful, is very sensitive, he is very, very careful in every action, and he always considers the consequences of any action that he performs. Before performing the action, there is so much of thinking, there is so much of precautions taken. As you are aware, in the Mahabharata it is described, to avoid this battle, Yudhisthira Maharaj tried peace negotiations with Duryodhana and the Kauravas. In so many ways he tried to avert this battle. He did not like the idea of fighting against the Kauravas in order to get back his rightful claim for the kingdom. But Duryodhana was obstinate and he would not give the kingdom back to the Pandavas. Of course, it's a very long story in the sense it's a historical incident that really happened. It is not a fictitious story. Actually, the Kauravas, headed by Duryodhana, they usurped the kingdom of the Pandavas by cheating them in a gambling match. And after they promised to return the kingdom, after the Pandavas had completed 13 years of exile, living in the forest, when they came back, Duryodhana refused to give back their kingdom. So then war became inevitable, because a Kshatriya, when challenged, he cannot refuse to fight. So Duryodhana said, you fight and defeat us and then you take your kingdom. So Kshatriya never begs for kingdom. Of course, it was a rightful claim. Yudhisthira was not begging Duryodhana, but Yudhisthira did not like the idea of fighting and killing the Kauravas and so many others. He knew that it's going to be a world war. So to avoid that world war, Yudhisthira tried peace negotiations. The Pandavas reduced their request for peace by averting the battle by just asking 5 villages for the 5 brothers. Even Duryodhana was not willing to give this much to the Pandavas. Why Pandavas were asking? Because they are duty bound to maintain themselves by ruling over citizens, by ruling over people. So they collect taxes and maintain themselves. So the Pandavas, as devotees, their life is very, very simple. Anyway, 13 years they have spent in exile. They are so magnanimous souls. They are, as pure devotees, they are completely free from the desire for sense enjoyment. A devotee maintains his body simply for the sake of doing some devotional service to Krishna, that's all. He maintains his existence only for serving Krishna. And for serving Krishna, what is required? Krishna is happy even if any devotee offers him in worship a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or little water. So devotees live a very simple life and they are engaged in a devotional service. So the Pandavas did not have even though they were born in a royal family and they were living in a palace before they were sent to exile, they were living in royal comforts as Kshatriyas ruling half the world. But as devotees, they did not want any of these comforts. So the Pandavas reduced their request and they asked Duryodhana for 5 villages. Duryodhana refused. So war was inevitable. So even though Duryodhana's obstinacy was the cause for the entire battle, Yudhisthira is now thinking that this massacre that has happened, he considers himself responsible. And therefore, he is very much feeling guilty of being the cause for this mass killing. I'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.